Hello. I'm not wearing a shirt because I'll die if I do. This video is brought to you by California wildfires and Eliana-chan Desune Uwu Incorporated. Ailey Kitty and we've been talking lately. He's really big into retro achievements, actually. That's how Eliana and I even met again here on the first place, is he's really into retro achievements. When we got RA going on Horizon, that's how he found the place. He was going through stuff and it's like, wait, what? Major update to... What is Horizon Final Fantasy 11? Level 75 server. And so he came on over here because of that. But nonetheless, you know, older games are his life. And mine. I totally get it. He was joking the other day that his wife was like, you know, honey, why do you have like 6,000 games but you only play like 20 of them from like 20 and 30 years ago? And it's just like, because they're good. And they're a source of familiarity. And as you grow older and the world becomes more chaotic and less predictable, sometimes you want to go back to some part of a time in your life when things just made sense. Escapism, I think, is only bad when you seek permanent escapism. I believe temporary escapism is only a benefit and a boon for anyone who maybe needs to get away from some bullcrap for a little while, reset their mind a little bit. Well, case in point, I have never played Persona 3 until the Switch release, like the Persona 3 portable version, not the reloaded one. Excuse me. Oh, pollen out here today, and the heat, and you know, I'm smoking cigarettes in a tent. There's fires 10 feet away from me. Yeah, the air's a little heavy out here. Anyway, I was playing Persona 3 Portable on the Switch, and even though I had never played that game when it originally released, there was something cathartic about it. Just playing a game from back then, even if you haven't played it yourself before and you have no nostalgia for it or anything like that, if you're seeking that, I want to go play something back when the world made sense to me. I'm not trying to say that the world doesn't make any sense. I'm a little older. I'm not in with the hip kids anymore. I don't know all the trends, okay? Hey, I didn't know that you can say, oh, thanks, sis. Because, like, I gave some makeup advice to someone recently. And they're just like, oh, thanks, sis. I appreciate that. And I was like, you're welcome. But just so you know, I'm a dude. And they were like, they just like put a question mark. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, you said sis and I'm a dude. And they're like, but sis is a gender neutral term. SIS? That's gender neutral. And I'm just like, oh, is it? Well, I guess I'm out of that loop. Okay. Whatever. That makes sense to the youth, okay? Doesn't make sense to me. So, I want to go back and play games, watch movies, anime, from a time when the world made sense to me. It's just a coping mechanism. We all do it in some way. And, the next couple videos that I'm going to be putting out, they are going to be inspired by Eliana-chan, because I've realized that I've been writing, like, basically dissertations in our little private Discord server, or a little dorky Discord server, and I'm just like, I'm telling this to like 4 people or whatever. Maybe I should just make videos about it. Maybe I should just make videos, be like, hey, y'all ever played this game? Maybe you haven't. Maybe you should check this out. That's what this following video series is all going to be about. And I am going to start with an absolute top tier favorite of mine. And I'm going to do my best to get more people to play this game, because I'm so darn sure that I know a lot of people really like the games made by one Hideo Kojima. The man's a genius. The man is a storytelling work of art in and of himself, in my opinion. I think that most people, even if your only experience has just been Metal Gear Solid 1, and that was the only one that you ever played, you have a pretty tacit understanding that Hideo Kojima, he makes good stuff. He makes transcendent works that, in some way, always find a way to go a little bit beyond the medium, have always been finding ways to bleed into the real world. And, back in like the 80s, early 90s, he was, okay, everyone knows the Psycho Mantis thing, right? Oh, I see you have a vibrating controller. Put it on the ground and I will move it with the power of my mind. Ah, yes. You see the power of the psychosis. I see you enjoy Castlevania. That whole thing where he starts reading your memory card and all that, and you can't beat him because he's reading Controller 1's port, and you can't beat the boss unless you pause the game, take the controller out of slot 1, put it into Controller Port 2, and now Psycho Mantis, he's trying to read Controller Port 1, and he can't, and now you can actually shoot him. That kind of stuff. Kojima has been doing that since day one. Well, I think a lot of people think that, oh, look at this new age thing that homie popped off with in Metal Gear Solid. That's always been something he puts into every game at least once. And Snatcher, as my understanding is, but this was from an interview from a while ago, it may not still be accurate, Hideo Kojima's favorite game of his is Police Knots. Police Knots is fundamentally, it's not a sequel to Snatcher, but it's a spiritual successor. Because Hideo Kojima really loved the American Lethal Weapon movies, and Police Knots is basically Lethal Weapon in space, written by Hideo Kojima. So, yeah, it's good, man. Honestly, my favorite scene in Police Knots, just to throw a little side there, because we're talking about Snatcher, you can't not talk about Police Knots. Translated into English by Slow Beef from Something Awful, by the way. My favorite scene in Police Knots is when they're all gathered around the dinner table, and Jonathan Ingram, who straight up looks like Mel Gibson from Lethal Weapon, except with blue hair. He's never really eaten in space before at this point. And so he's like, oh man, this meal looks great. Oh, I'm gonna try some of this tempura. This tastes like crap. Can one of you guys pass the salt? So they pass him a salt shaker, and he's just like, what is this? This salt has no flavor. And he's like, yeah, dude, you can't have too much sodium in your food in space because it'll really mess with your kidneys. So we don't actually have salt in space. That's ground up eggshell dust. We use that to add calcium to our bodies instead of salt, because out here on the space station, just Hideo Kojimisms of science and metabolism and just body health science and everything that he incorporates into his games to build his worlds. I love it, baby. Kojima is a genius. But Snatcher. Funny thing is that I had a chance to buy Snatcher when I was initially building my Sega Saturn collection. Around the time I was fortunate enough to pick up a Shining Force 3 Scenario 1 US and Panzer Dragoons V on Saturn. There was a copy of Snatcher in that same software, etc., that I did not buy. Because I was like, oh man, it's a used game, but it's $100. I know everyone says Snatcher's a good game, but dang, I'd rather get a couple Saturn games. I got Shining the Holy Ark for Saturn at the same time. So I got 3 really rare Saturn games. I was like, I'll pass up on Snatcher. To this day, I will regret that forever. If you look up Snatcher these days, it's $1,000 plus for just an average copy. But what's interesting to me, specifically about that Sega CD version of Snatcher, is that is the first time Kojima got to finish the story. Snatcher was originally released for the PC-88, and it didn't really look that great, actually. It was PC-88 and MSX2. And it only had Act 1 and 2. The whole story is 3 acts. But in the first couple releases, it was only Act 1 and 2. Because they ran out of money. And I believe the intention was to release Act 3 as its own standalone disc later. So like if you already owned the boot disc and then the data disc for Snatcher, because Japanese computers typically had 2 input ports, sometimes it's a cartridge and a disc, sometimes it's 2 discs, things like that. Then hey, like here's Act 3, put in Snatcher, right? And then like when you're on the title screen, take out the data disc and put in the Act 3 disc, and then hit start game. And then I think they were gonna try and like do a Golden Sun the Lost Age like data transfer thing, because the game was keeping track of your score in combat and all that to give you a rank of like sergeant or general at the end, which is a thing that Kojima does in like all of his games. Another reason I love him is that he has all these like, oh, how fast did you do it? How many times did you save? How many times did you get caught? How many people did you kill? Here's your rank. Here's your grade. Yeah, even Snatcher even has that. It's a visual novel with light gun compatibility with a Konami justifier, by the way, if you're playing the Sega CD version. But yeah, you gotta figure, Kojima wrote Snatcher when he was in college in the 70s. So that was like a very early young man Kojima story to him. So like if you really want to see where Kojima has come from over the years, you really got to check out Snatcher. You're going to see where like all of the roots for so many things that you see recurrent in his games, you will see them in Snatcher for the first time. And what is Snatcher? It's Blade Runner. It's dope. It's Blade Runner with Terminator, and it's just really cool. I mean, I don't know. I'm not gonna tell you the plot and the story and all that. Jeez. But if you saw that one video, I was kind of poking fun at Yoriichi for talking about, hey, this throwable ammo item shouldn't be throwable. It's just a stat up item. Don't let it be throwable. That is a scene from Snatcher, which that particular scene from Snatcher is one of 2 that you can get if you're mucking around Alton Plaza and going to the black market. You can get this rare scene where Gillian will go up to a food vendor and try to order that Neo Kobe pizza. My Neo Kobe pizza, it's sick. It's sick, just like the rest of this city's gonna. I got a little angry there, Gillian. It sounded kind of like a Terry there. But there's this other one that is like word for word, and it's spoken dialogue on the game disc, right? Where he goes up to this Chinese food cart, and this dude is like, what do you have? He's like, give me 4 of these, and the guy's like, no, 2 will be plenty. Gillian's like, nah, give me 4. That's some noodles. And it's like, that's line for line what Harrison Ford said in frickin' Blade Runner. It's just a scene straight out of Blade Runner. And like the PC-88 and the MSX2 versions of Snatcher, when you go to Outer Heaven, by the way, yeah, every single game Kojima makes has to have an Outer Heaven reference or something. You have to go to the bar, and you gotta talk to the stripper, because she's the last one who saw your ex-junker buddy, because, junker, I forget what it stands for in American now, but I think the Japanese one was, Justice, Unarmed, Special Task Force, I don't know, Naked Kind, Execution Ranger. The acronym for junker in Japanese is just so ridiculous. I don't even remember what it stands for. It's so stupid. But yes, junkers, not runners. They're the ones that are going out and trying to hunt the Snatchers, which are, like the Terminator skeleton things that have artificial human skin put over them to take people's place in society, such as politicians and celebrities, in order for the one who's creating them to kind of start controlling the world with, extreme nerficerity and underhanded tactics to do so. And the whole game takes place on the island of Neo Kobe, Japan. The island has become so overrun by excessive conglomeratization that the island is now physically sinking at a rate of 3 centimeters a year. And in fact, Neo Kobe will one day sink, which is why Gillian is just like, oh, this city's just gonna sink into the ocean at one point. Then I'll just be feeling great watching this whole stupid city sink under the ocean because I wouldn't give him my Neo Kobe pizza. Gillian is a character. I love Gillian. Gillian Seed, what a man. You actually get to play as Gillian Seed in Metal Gear Solid 4. If, you know that part where you're going to go find Big Mama in London or Paris or whatever? Snake's disguise, you know how he looks like super young, he's got like that you know, brown hair, the brown trench coat and all that. That's Gillian Seed from Snatcher. He just wanted to have a 3D model of Gillian Seed, and he was like, oh, if it has to be a disguise, you know, Gillian Seed could pass as a younger version of Snake, so yeah, let's 3D model that. You could also find the very catchy, jazzy opening theme from Snatcher as an MP3 file for Snake's iPod in that stage when you're skulking around the streets and, you know, trying to find the resistance and not get caught by the polizia. But I was sold on Snatcher a little bit toward the end of like the first major scene when you go to the abandoned warehouse, which is where Gibson was, you know, sending an SOS call. He's like, yo, I got 2 positive Snatchers here, I need some backup, homie. So you and Metal Gear, yes, your little navigator smart helper unit thing from Metal Gear Solid 4, that is the Metal Gear that you have in Snatcher. It's the same thing, except in Metal Gear Solid 4, he has like a flat panel LCD screen that like pops open. And in Snatcher, because it's based off of the Metal Gear from Metal Gear 2, not Metal Gear Solid 2, but Metal Gear 2 on the MSX2, which was a really cool cartridge. It had a special sound effect chip in it that Konami did a lot in Japan and Nintendo of America wouldn't allow them to do. That's another story. But the Metal Gear in Snatcher, he's got like this big old giant box kind of like connected to the side of him, like on his right shoulder or whatever. And like in Metal Gear 2, that was like a payload launcher. That was like the main missile armament that the Metal Gear had equipped on it. But in Snatcher, it's a giant CRT television with a telephone attached to it. Metal Gear is an early cell phone with a video camera screen on it. And also it talks, and it's a huge smart ass. Was it Julie Childs did the voice of Metal Gear in the Sega CD version, I think? And I think she did a fantastic job. I don't remember if that's her name or not. I think it was. Don't quote me on that. Just go to Moby Games or whatever and look it up. But when you are in the abandoned warehouse, that's the first time that the insectors come after you, because you can't just be fighting Snatchers the entire game. That would kind of trivialize them and make them not feel threatening. So the things you fight a lot of are just like the little insectors. They're these little drone things that the Snatchers employ to kind of keep an eye out and keep a lookout so they know where they can go safely, because again, they're trying to steal people's identities and so no one can know who they are. So these insectors are kind of like a thing to help them avoid detection. And that's the first time you get to, you know, bust out the gun. It's just like a 3x3 grid. If you're not pressing anything on the D-pad, the crosshair sits in the center. You know, if you press left, it goes to the. If you press left, it goes to the left. If you let go of left, it snaps back into the center. It's not like if I'm in the top left corner, I have to press down, down, right, right to get to the bottom right corner. It's just, if I'm in the top left, let go and press the bottom right, you're in the bottom right instantly. It's very responsive and it feels good. And you find Gibson's navigator, Little John, who has been torn to shreds, and Metal Gear puts his little robot arm thing in there and basically pulls out a micro SD card and they're hoping that maybe they can look at some of the last data on Little John to figure out who killed Gibson, because when you walk to the next room, there's major controversial scene for the time. This is in the era when video games were like first getting ratings and all that. And Snatcher had a very, very gruesome and mega violent scene that was censored in a lot of versions. And surprisingly, in the American Sega CD version, it wasn't censored at all. It is Gibson's body laying up against a support beam and kind of slouched over, and his head is between his legs, and it is incredibly detailed of the fact that his head was not cut off. It was twisted and ripped off, and it's nasty. It is hella nasty. I cannot believe they didn't censor that in any way. It's shocking to see that in a game that old, and it just you're not prepared for it. It's just like, oh, bro, what the hell? I'll spoil that one for you, just so you understand what you're getting into. This game gets gruesome. Like, future Japanese releases of this game have mosaic censoring over them because it was considered too violent. It gets nasty, bro. You don't want to know what's in the morgue later on. Ugh. Anyway, Metal Gear is like, okay, look, we need to figure out where Gibson has been. So I'm going to cut his stomach open, and I'm going to take some tissue samples out of his stomach and see what I could find in there. Maybe we could get some idea from like the last food that he ate, maybe we can track down or have some idea where he's been, figure out something, right? And as it turns out, he has buffalo meat in his stomach, which is kind of illegal in Neo Kobe. So that actually turns out to be incredibly helpful, because not a lot of places serve buffalo meat. So that is what ends up giving you the clue, which leads you to go to Outer Haven to talk to the stripper, who was the last person that Gibson had talked to, and the rest of the plot kind of goes from there. But why am I talking about all of this still? I just want you to understand the game a little bit and how much I love it. And get back to my point at hand here, is the blurring the lines that Kojima does with his games. When you first walk in to the warehouse and you're done fighting the insectors for the first time, and after you've helped Little John, and then after you've done the Gibson thing, you're not allowed to leave that screen, because Metal Gear is like, hey, do you hear that beeping sound? And then Gillian speaks on your behalf, and he's like, no, I don't hear anything. And so, you examine everything in the room, you look everywhere at every single thing in the room, and then Gillian's like, not seeing or hearing anything, man. Metal, what are you picking up? And Metal says, if you can't hear it, maybe you should turn the volume up on your TV until you can. And then once you do that, it's like, okay, wait, yeah, there is a sound. Whoa, I had to turn the TV like way up to be able to hear that. That's okay. And Metal Gear even told me to do that. That's kind of cool, right? It's not it. Hang on. Then, after it's become, after you confirm, like, okay, yeah, I can hear that sound, then you're allowed to go, and then you go check Little John, and then it's like, yo, Little John is making a weird beeping sound. And then Metal Gear looks over at him and is like, oh, there's a time bomb inside of him. We're gonna die. And as you're running out, trying to escape, you get attacked by insectors again. And now it's very tense, because it's like, uh-oh, there's a time limit to this now. Okay, shoot these things fast, bro. Shoot these things fast. Get this done. Your adrenaline is going mega hard at this point. And then Metal Gear starts being... Metal Gear gets paralyzed with fear. And Gillian is like, excuse me? You're a robot. What do you mean you're afraid? And Metal Gear is just like, I am incapable of locomotion. Please go on without me. I'll have to stay here. And Gillian is just like, I can't believe this stupid robot. Come on, man. So he grabs Metal Gear. He starts running out of the building. And then as he's, like Lethal Weapon leaping away from this explosion behind him, cradling his little robot kitten in his arms, you hear the most god-awful, loud-ass explosion you're probably ever going to hear coming out of your TV. And then Gillian remarks, oh, gosh, my ears are still ringing. And then Metal Gear says, that's because you left the volume turned up. Hideo Kojima, everybody. Seriously, though, you got to play Snatcher. It's also worth looking at version differences once you have. I'm not going to say what it is or why, but it's very cool, this one little thing in the ending, because it's Hideo Kojima. Something very unique happens in the ending of the game depending on which console and which version you play it on. It's neat. It's cool. I'm not going to say what it is. It's not really a big deal, but I've always thought it was cool. Anyway, I think I have probably barfed more than anyone on the internet has in the last decade about Snatcher, and hopefully it's convinced at least one of you to go check it out. It's abandonware at this point. It's not even illegal to play it on an emulator with an ISO. No one owns the rights to it anymore. So go play it. It's awesome. It's one of my favorite games of all time. And I hope you like it too. Thank you for listening to me talk about a game that's even older than Final Fantasy XI for like 27 minutes. And I hope you check out Snatcher, and I hope you appreciate it and come to enjoy it as much as I have. Yeah. God bless.